let's talk about the end of Monday Night Raw. Far and away, the most talked about segment on the show, the wedding of Lana and Lashley. The hashtag Lana Lashley wedding, which is ironic because theoretically, if she married Lashley, her name would be Lana Lashley. So, we have this wedding set up. There's a whole bunch of chairs out there, nobody sitting in them. I hope that was not just an oversight. I hope that was actually a detail. Because if they did expect to have a whole bunch of guests and then just nobody showed up because they don't like Lana and Lashley, that's hilarious. It's great. I think it added that there was nobody sitting in the chairs. But I'm gonna refrain from my opinions because this is a highly, highly controversial, hotly debated segment. Okay, I said one tweet about it, one tweet, and I am still days later getting hate spewed at me for it. So, we do the wedding. Bobby Lashley comes out to his theme music. Guns blazing, no sleeves, no undershirt. Biceps, triceps, pecs. Sleeveless tux jacket, looking like $1 million. Lana comes out to actual wedding music. We go to commercial, come back. This jamoke is the wedding officiant, who, thank God that Lana understood a little bit more about timing than the wedding officiant. But again, I'm not trying to get into my opinions, because he was long-winded. That's all I'm saying. A long-winded, Bill Belichick-looking wedding officiant. And I will bet any amount of money that somebody saw that guy, they got a kick out of the fact that he looked like Bill Belichick, and that's why he got the job. I would also bet money that at some point in the day, there was a discussion about having that guy perform that wedding ceremony with a hoodie with the sleeves cut off because he looked that much like Bill Belichick. I guarantee that was at least a conversation at some point during the day. Probably best that that did not happen because it would have been the weirdest thing ever. But as bizarre as the segment was, might have been okay. So they're reading their vows. Lana's telling the crowd to shut up, don't chant Rusev Day. This isn't about Rusev. There is a conspicuous, giant, wrestler-sized cake right next to Lana and Lashley. I think if Lana and Lashley could go back in time, they would probably say to themselves, let's not get a cake the size of a wrestler and just stand it in the ring for our wedding that doesn't have any guests anyway. Nobody's going to eat that much cake. There's nobody here. There's 3 of us. But regardless, that's hindsight, easy for me to say. So they got their big wrestler-sized cake. Lana's yelling at the crowd. They're reading their vows. Lana says, don't bring up kids. I don't want one of those ugly little monsters crawling out of me. Beautiful, because who likes a woman who's getting married and thinks kids are terrible? Nobody. It's an unlikable trait. So, anybody have any objections? A man comes out. Looks to be local talent. Apparently at one point, Lana was married to a local talent. He comes out in his tux. He goes, or his suit, not a tux. And he goes, Lana left me for that son of a bitch Rusev, and then Lana left that son of a bitch for this son of a bitch Lashley. Lashley got all fired up. First of all, the idea that it's Lana's 3rd marriage, it's not exactly a high crime, you know what I mean? People get married, they get divorced, they get married again, they get divorced again, they get married again. There are people 5 or 6. Well, Larry King's been married 283 times. Granted, he's 1,015 years old, so you do what you got to do, but to get married and get divorced is not exactly a crime. This guy had a case of sour grapes. He needs to move on with his life. But he called Lashley a son of a bitch. Lashley gave him a nice quick spine buster and threw his ass out of the ring. Good. I was happy to see that. Okay, any other objections? Well, now we got another person coming out. She says that she is Bobby Lashley's first wife. And Lana's sick of it. The woman gets up on the ring apron again. As long as you're not married today, get over yourself, honey. Lana slaps her in the face. Stephanie McMahon, Brie Bella style. Knocks her right off the ring apron. Toodaloo. Go back to where you came from. Move on. Let Bobby move on. Seriously, any other objections? Wait. Here comes Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan comes out. We've been watching these vignettes about finding the real Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan comes out. She goes, how can you do this? How can you do this? We were in love. I wouldn't have been able to survive the last year without you. This is ridiculous. Bobby Lashley says, I don't even talk to this lady. Liv Morgan says, not you, her. Whoa, it's Lana. There was some kind of love affair going on between Lana and Liv Morgan that we didn't even know about. A fight ensues. Liv Morgan gets thrown out of the ring. Seriously, can we just get married? Okay, let's go ahead and let's pronounce you husband and... Oh, wait, I forgot there's a wrestler-sized cake there. It's Rusev Day. Here comes Rusev, busting out of the cake, takes out Lashley. Liv Morgan's back in the ring, takes out Lana. And Rusev and Liv Morgan, friends, because they were both scorned by Lana, and they're both sick of Bobby Lashley and his beautiful, amazing glutes. And that's how the show ends. I don't think that if you paid anyone any amount of money, they could have called what we saw on Monday Night Raw. Now, there is something about Lana, Lashley, Rusev segments, storylines. I've been very critical of them on this podcast. Everybody's been critical of them on Twitter. It is the in thing to tear them apart. There is something, as soon as you hear that rumbling, do-do-do-do-do-do, I don't even know if that's right, of Bobby Lashley coming out, you go, boo, this is going to suck, and I'm not even booing because he's a bad guy. I'm booing because I don't want to see this segment, but I'll watch it. And there was a lot of that coming off this wedding. It's the dumbest thing ever. WWE's going backwards, not forwards, and stupid. It doesn't help anybody. Poor Liv Morgan. For God's sake, she got all these vignettes. And then she comes out on this segment, and this is what they do. Poor Liv Morgan. She had so much more to offer. They're offering their condolences to the career of Liv Morgan. Come on. I don't like Lana, and I don't like Bobby Lashley, but poor Rusev. It's Rusev Day. He's got so much more to offer. Come on. And I sat there, and I go, and then, you got people tweeting, what the hell is going on Raw right now? For hours, it was the #1 trend on Twitter. I went to sleep. I woke up the next morning, 9 hours after upload. The wedding had 1.1 million views on YouTube. Now, it's got many more million views on YouTube because people can't believe, they're disgusted. I got to click on this again and watch it. I'm going to be honest with you. I was not watching Monday Night Raw live this week. It was a holiday. I was doing something else. I set my DVR for Monday Night Raw. And I said, okay, I'll watch Raw. I'm not going to work in the morning. So maybe, tomorrow afternoon when the kid's napping, I'll kind of go through Raw and I'll watch it then. I looked at my Twitter account and I turned Raw on live because there were so many people talking about Lana and Lashley. And I am sure that I am not unique in that case. If you look at the ratings, very good ratings for Raw this week, comparable to where they've been. And there is usually a pretty big drop-off in the third hour of Raw. People go to bed. People have already watched 2.5 hours of wrestling. Enough is enough. I'll set the DVR. I'll watch the rest later. I've been there. I wake up at 4:30 every morning. You think I'm up at 11 o'clock watching every Raw? I'm setting the DVR. I'm watching it later. But the ratings were pretty consistent going into that third hour. And the fact that you had a high number of eyes, even in the overrun, after 11 p.m., means that they were watching for that segment. People were turning their TVs on for that segment. People were talking about that segment. And the people that missed that segment were going to YouTube to watch that segment. So I go, okay, all right. So it worked in terms of eyes. It worked in terms of gaining interest and getting people to talk. Okay, that's something. But that's not everything. That's just something. And I thought to myself, and I tweeted about this, after it ended, I wanted to go back on my DVR and watch the whole segment again. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. I don't know if I wanted to watch it as a train wreck. I don't know if I wanted to watch it and take notes on how to get people talking. I don't know what I wanted to see. I had to see just the most bizarre thing had happened, and I needed to see it again. And I know I'm not the only one that watched it more than once. So I'm going, okay, that's also a mark of success. Then I start thinking about crowd reactions. I read some people on Twitter going, well, you know, when Liv Morgan came out, they just wanted like a trash TV, Jerry Springer type reaction, but they didn't get that. Well, if you watch the show, literally in 2019, the audience is chanting, Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. When Liv Morgan says, Lana, it's you, not Bobby Lashley, the crowd goes, oh! People on Twitter are like, what? Like, I was watching that segment, and I'm like, okay, Lashley's getting booed more than ever. Lana's getting booed more than ever, but at no point, watch that segment again, at no point is Lana breaking character. At no point does Lana appear lost out there. Lana and Lashley, whatever heat, quote unquote, this whole storyline has, Lana and Lashley are taking all of it because this storyline is making fans hate Lana and Lashley. It's making them boo Lana and Lashley, who are the bad guys. I'm going to tell you something about Rusev. Before this storyline, the Rusev Day chants were done. Rusev Day and the interest in Rusev Day had died out. At WrestleMania 34, I want to say, the one in New Orleans, the year before last, the stadium of people were chanting Rusev Day during the kickoff show just because. This year at WrestleMania? No, not the case. And since WrestleMania? Absolutely not the case. But you know what's been happening since people, and they'll tell you it's because they feel bad for Rusev because he's stuck in this storyline. Rusev is getting cheered as much as ever, and the Rusev Day chants are back permeating through these arenas. Liv Morgan is all of a sudden one of the most popular members of the female roster. I mean, people like Liv Morgan, but she was not sitting around going like, well, there's Becky, there's Charlotte, and there's Liv Morgan. That's not what people were saying. Now, they're going like, how could you waste Liv Morgan on a storyline like this? She deserves the stars, the moon, all the gold and trinkets in the world. Which, great. If there are a lot of people that feel that way, incredible. But guess what? It's not making it so that when Liv Morgan comes out, you're like, I don't care about this. Liv Morgan comes out, and you're cheering harder than you've ever cheered for Liv Morgan. There is more Liv Morgan support amongst wrestling fans now than there has ever been. I was talking to a friend about, even before the wedding, about the Lana and Rusev story. And he said, you know what the weirdest thing is? As bad as these segments are, it kind of works. Because all the bad guys are getting booed and all the good guys are getting cheered. And the bad guys are getting booed worse than ever and the good guys are getting cheered more than ever. These segments themselves are not getting booed out of the building. Because when Rusev jumps out of a cake, he's not getting booed. He's getting cheered. And when Liv Morgan attacks Lana, it's not getting poo-pooed out of the building. Liv's getting cheered. Lana's getting booed. And people are talking. You could say it's for the wrong reasons, but I don't see how it's for the wrong reasons. I didn't see this story working. Somehow, this story is working. Now, there is the question of Liv Morgan playing an LGBT character and Lana being involved in an LGBT storyline and whether or not that's going to be handled properly by the WWE. But until it is not handled properly by the WWE, there's no reason to say, well, this is just, this is cheap. This is, this is trivializing everything. Because it's not yet. It might, but it's not now. There is a road you could go down where it would be, but we're not on that road as far as we know. It depends what happens next week on Raw and the week after. If we just sit there and say, well, Lana and Liv Morgan had a romantic relationship, and we don't make a big production out of it, and we don't have all these hang-ups about it, and we just keep it moving and say, yeah, this is a normal thing that happens with adults, that's not harmful. If anything, that's positive. So even that part of it, you could see where, if they go in a different direction with this, it could be a negative thing. But they haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. So you can't even blame them for that. You can sit there and say, this thing got off to a really weird start because there was some weird infidelity, cuckolding stuff going on. But now we're at this position where Rusev is not in love with Lana anymore, and they're divorced. Lana's moved on to this other guy. They're jerks. But it's soap opera. It's soap opera. And it's okay if you don't like wrestling soap opera. But to me, wrestling needs some soap opera. And if you can have a show where AJ Styles and Randy Orton are telling an amazing story, or at least a good story, and Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens are teaming up as good guys, and it's working. And Seth Rollins is finally a bad guy, and it's working. And the Authors of Pain have this great spot, and it's working. And all this stuff is happening, right? And you're excited about the women's main event at Royal Rumble between Becky Lynch and Asuka. And you're excited about Charlotte being in the women's Royal Rumble. And all this stuff is happening. And oh yeah, there's this insane, ridiculous soap opera going on over here. But as a fan, I'm booing the bad guys and cheering the good guys, and I'm talking about it. I can't for the life of me, logically, as I sit here as a wrestling Vulcan, as I'm trying to live long and prosper, I'm just using logic. I'm not using emotion. Logically, you cannot explain to me how this wasn't a successful angle on Raw. You can't. You could tell me you didn't like it, and that's cool. Maybe you don't like, maybe this was because it's so over-the-top soap opera. Maybe you don't like the soap opera stuff. That's cool. You don't have to like it. But I felt like WWE was going for something, and they got the result that they wanted. And they've made it so that now I'll watch Liv Morgan versus Lana. I'll watch Bobby Lashley versus Rusev one more time. I'll watch a mixed tag, Rusev and Liv Morgan versus Bobby Lashley and Lana. But to also say that Liv Morgan is being misused when she's being brought back to be a part of arguably the most high-profile storyline on Monday Night Raw, the storyline that certainly has the most eyes. She's not just being brought back in the middle of a show with some gimmick. She's being presented to you as a serious person in the main event of Raw, in a position where we know the only reason this wedding is happening is because we look at the YouTube eyes. We know that millions of people are going to watch this. We know millions are going to watch this. So what are we going to do to ensure that those millions of people have something to talk about? Let's bring Liv Morgan back for it. That's a tremendous amount of faith in Liv Morgan as a performer. Because clearly, this segment teeters that line between getting the desired result and being poo-pooed out of the building. This is a very risky segment for that reason. Rate of success is low. But go back, watch This Is Your Life, Bailey, and watch a segment completely unravel and be thrown out of a building by fans who know that this is bad and it's not working. Watch that segment, and then watch the Lashley-Lana wedding segment. Nothing about the Lashley Lana segment didn't work. It was effective, man. I don't know what to tell you. Unless that's just not your thing, and that's totally cool. I will absolutely hear somebody saying, I didn't like that. That was stupid. Okay, that's cool. But to be like, that was bad for the business or damaging for anybody involved, or it didn't work, or it was a dud, or anything like that, I would go out on a limb and say you might not know what you're talking about. Unless you can prove me wrong. And if you can, hit me up on an email, notsamwrestling@gmail.com. Leave a comment on YouTube. You can tell me. You can tell me.